All right, I think we're ready to go. Welcome. It is a great time of year. I really love this time of year. I used to say that spring was my favorite time of year, but I'm kind of liking this casual fall. I don't know. It was nice that it was warm for a while, and then it started to get cold, and I'm actually planning a trip to the Arctic this winter. So I've been trying to embrace the cold and and bought a whole bunch of winter stuff. And so I'm like saying, yes, I love the cold. I love the cold. I love the cold. We'll see if it works. We're excited. We've got a couple of things we'd like to share with you today. We may get done a little bit early. I hate to say that and then not be able to deliver. So we're crossing our fingers. But our learning intention today is we will review the EPP systems of support for literacy and discuss how programs may qualify under the system of support. And then our success criteria is that participants will understand how programs may qualify for the systems of support for literacy and be familiar with options and requirements under each tier. And you guys are probably looking at that and go, what is that? Because we haven't really talked about it. So hopefully by the end of this meeting, you'll be familiar with it. And this is our agenda for today. We have some agency updates. We're going to review feedback from the APPEL Leadership Conference. We're going to talk about some of the data that we've collected as part of the EPP annual report. I will say that this data is still in draft form. We haven't quite analyzed all of the information that we received. So any information I share today is probably, it may change. I don't know if it will change, but it might change. So don't take it to the bank. And then we'll talk about the EPP systems of support menu. Have some news. Andrew Grove has accepted a teaching position in Alpine School District, and his last day will be at USPE on November 29th. We are really sad that Andrew is leaving. He's been a great asset to our team, and we really appreciate all the work that he's done for us and for you guys and for the APPEL programs. But he he got a chance to teach, and it's like I just really miss it. So we're really excited for him because it's hard to say no to people wanting to be teachers. So
Just for the
and then
record, Sarah, for the record, I just want you to know he has been amazing.
yes, he has. We're gonna miss him. Anything? Do you want to say anything, Andrew?
I definitely do not want to say anything, Lisa. No, it has been amazing working with all of you. These last 3 years have just been the best. So definitely nothing that could be replaced, but I am just excited for a new adventure, and also like who doesn't love summers? So I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm really excited to get summers back as well. So
That's great. I'm sure it'll be fun, and we're excited for you. We will have Jennifer Prince, who most of you are familiar with, who has assumed Andrew's role as the APPEL support position. So she will start just kind of the Monday, November 29th is Friday, and then Jennifer will start the Monday following. And then we're excited for that because she comes with a lot of background knowledge, particularly with APPEL programs, and I think she knows a lot of you already, and so we're really excited for that. And she should be able to hit the ground running on that job, and hopefully we won't miss anything, but if we do, let us know. um, and then we will be hiring for her position. So if you know anybody who's interested, um, that position should be posted probably in the next couple weeks. So, all right. I'm going to turn the time over to Camilla, who has some reminders about endorsements.
Thanks, Lisa. So this is just a quick reminder about science endorsements. When an APPEL candidate is being recommended for a professional endorsement in biology, chemistry, or science or physics, they also need to have completed all the requirements for the science core endorsement, and they need to be recommended for that at the same time. So they can't skip over the science core and be recommended for like biology 2 or chemistry 1. They have to have those together as a prerequisite.
Any questions on that? Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I think we'll go on.
Then we also just have another quick reminder about value-added endorsements. There's some endorsements that Apple programs can't recommend candidates for. After a candidate's received a professional license, they can apply for this list of any of these endorsements that are on this list through the endorsement only section of SM Apply, but it just can't be added through their initial license when they're being recommended through an Apple program.
And the term value added comes from the idea that these are endorsements that can only be awarded once they already have a professional license. And so the that's the they can't earn it as their only endorsement as their first license. And there was a question in the chat about can ESL be an initial license endorsement? And yes. BTLS is no. And I think it's
The
go
question
ahead.
is, what does that stand for?
Oh, what is BTL? Okay. Beverly Taylor. Oh, whoops. It's supposed to be BTS. Beverly Taylor Sorensen something, right? Did we get the
Yeah,
acronym wrong?
that's out.
Okay.
I'll
What is
take a
it?
look for
Beverly
that one.
Taylor Sorensen. Now I
Arts.
can't remember. Arts. BTSA.
BTS Arts. No, it's just BTS Arts.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. We all learned something
Yes,
new.
you're right, Shonda. It should be BTS. My bad. We'll fix that on the slide.
Yep. Okay, are there any questions about the value-added endorsements, or are we good?
Yes. Will somebody drop a link to the PowerPoint in the chat?
Got it.
Thank you. Okay. Next we have, oh, this is Camilla too.
No worries. So we're updating the Apple Directors Collaboration folder to a new shared drive that will be available soon. So we hope that it'll be more organized and secure than what we currently have. So what we need from you guys right now is we need your current contact information for you and anyone else that helps administer your Apple program. So this would not be for Apple candidates, or if someone only mentors Apple candidates, probably isn't for them. So if someone is helping to like review transcripts or help with courses, things like that, and they'll excuse me, if they need access to the Apple Drive, we'll need you to add their information. We have a spreadsheet linked on this slide. If someone isn't on this list, they won't get access to the new drive, even if they had access to the old one. Just we want to keep it secure. We've got some people that have access to the old one that we're not sure who they are, and they haven't responded to questions about who they are. So we want to make sure that this is for people who really need it. So if you could add your information, make sure it's correct, and add the information of your support people if you have them, that would be great.
This is going to be kind of our Christmas break project, so we're hoping we'll have the folder ready by January.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's about it. If no one can get into the folder, let me know. Well, to the Google Sheet, it should be there, but if not, I can fix that. Well, I think that's about all I have. So I'll pass the baton back to Lisa.
Excellent. Okay, so I think some of you may have gotten the email about our draft special ed teacher preparation competencies. And some of you are aware that we have approved new standards for special ed programs. And when we approve new standards, we have to do new competencies. And so we've had a team working on these for a while, and we were finally able to release them for public comment. So we've got 30-day public comment that will end on December 8th. And if you haven't had a chance to provide public comment, please do so by December 8th. And these are competencies that will inform special ed programs. And kind of define those knowledge, skills, and dispositions that we want our special ed teachers to be able to demonstrate before they get their license. Oh, there was a question. So this is a new folder, not for new directors, correct? Yes, that is correct. So we have been working on transferring all of our resources over to the Google shared drive is what it is. It's going to be a little bit easier for us to manage that way. So eventually we will replace the link to our Apple Directors Collaboration folder to our Apple Directors Collaboration shared drive. Okay, let me drop this in the chat. I just figured out how to do that. If you would like to do this right now, you are more than welcome to. Or if you would like to share the link with your special ed directors or any of your special ed teachers that may be interested in providing public comment. The plan for these is that once we receive all the public comment, there may be some revisions. We're hoping to get these in front of the board committee by January. It just depends. We've given ourselves like a week leeway before the board memos are due. So right now we've received like 195 comments or over 200 comments, I think. So it may take us more than a week to comb through all those. So it may not be until February that we get it in front of the committee, but and then whenever the board approves the new competencies, we'll have at least a year for programs to work on getting those implemented into their programs. So we'll just see when everything gets approved, and then we'll go from there. Okay. This was in the licensing newsletter, but we wanted to share it here just in case you missed it. Salt Lake Community College has a spring schedule of courses that I believe start in January. They are also offering some endorsement coursework for PE and health and then for math. And we know we get a lot of questions about where can we find courses for endorsements. So we for sure wanted to share that with y'all. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Maria, who I believe is on this call, or Sylvia. Is it Sylvia? Is her assistant. Okay, and I don't know if Christina wants to do this. This one was also in the newsletter, and I thought I'd share it here. Some of you are aware that we now have a Utah registered apprenticeship program, and we are accepting applications for LEAs and IHEs that would like to participate in that program. And Christina's created some really great resources and links to information on how to do that, the application process and things. She is on this call, isn't she? I thought I saw her. Wonder if she wanted to add anything. Maybe I missed it. Okay. But here's the link to the newsletter and the application if you are interested in reaching out to her about having a registered apprenticeship in your LEA. I will turn the time over to Andrew to talk about the leadership conference.
Cool. So thanks for all of you who were able to make it. I thought the conference was super awesome this year. We got a lot of feedback at the conference and also through the conference survey. So this is just because the questions were so open-ended. This is just kind of generalizing what a lot of the feedback said. Some of it was more specific than we necessarily cover in this slide. But anyway, so generally, some of the things that it sounds like you guys appreciated about the conference this year was that it was a one-day conference. We got a ton of feedback about like one-day conference was awesome. It sounds like the pre-survey that we sent out was appreciated to get like targeted sessions, and also that it sounds like everything that you guys wanted to be addressed was addressed. Again, this is generally speaking, which we think is great. And then also having a place to eat on site was surprisingly very popular. A lot of people put that in their feedback. So we appreciate that. Lisa, do you want to go to the next slide? And then I don't know if this is necessarily suggestions for next time, because I'm not sure all of this will necessarily wait like another year to do. I also don't know because I won't be here, but it sounds like some of the needs that are still out there are opportunities to collaborate with Apple colleagues, and there are some really good ideas. It wasn't just like we need more time to collaborate, but it was like maybe having just like a work session where it's just like an hour for you guys to with like no presentations going on, just an hour to collaborate with colleagues, which I thought was a very interesting idea. And then also more examples of how programs are completing the approval templates, um, which was I would have loved to have more of those too. But as far as I knew and still know, there's only one program that's like really completed it. So there's only one that we could invite, as of October. And I'll also say, I believe, and Lisa can correct me on this if I'm wrong. I believe USBE is planning to release a new Apple model program and a model template that has like everything that USBE has approved, that you guys can use. And then I know a lot of you have your own coursework and all of that, and so you'll be able to add to that template if you want, or if you want to remove things from that template, like the model template, be welcome to do that as well. But I believe those are things that are coming. It's hard to do when like we haven't approved all the coursework that needs to go on it, and a lot of that hasn't been finalized. So I think we're hoping to have that done, the approval for things like the university coursework from UVU and SUU and SLIC and all that, micro credentials, um, by January 1st. So hopefully in the new year, not too long, that will be something you guys could utilize as well to kind of help kickstart that process. But if you wanted to get feedback and you haven't, you're more than welcome to do that. So I threw the link to um, the survey in the slide there.
Great, thanks. Yes, that I felt like we had a little bit of a broken record at the conference because people would ask, so when is this going to be ready? When is this going to be ready? And I kept saying January, January, January. So that's our goal, is to get all these the model program updated and some of the like the coursework's available so that you can hopefully just fill out your template really quickly once you have all that information available in January. So that's the plan. We're excited for that. And we're also going to be scheduling some workshops. We'll probably use some time during this monthly Apple Directors meeting to do that, but we could schedule some additional workshops outside of that time, depending on how things go, to help you through that process. So I thought the collaboration one was interesting because it was like almost split down the middle of the half of you said you wanted to collaborate more and half of you said nope, we're good. So I thought that was fun. Oh, and then I forgot to mention, as long as we're talking about approving courses and courses that are available, we have been working with Snow College on providing courses for Apple programs, and they're pretty excited about that. They're also working to develop their education program, so they were doing that in collaboration with that process. And it sounds like we've got some courses ready to share in our next newsletter, which I think is going to go out today. So watch for information on that. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the EPP annual report. We have some information on enrollment and then also on testing data that we'd like to share with you today. So the purpose of sharing this is just so that you are aware of the data that we've seen so far, and also to correct any mistakes we may have, because we do eventually will be publishing this, sharing it with the board and the legislature on the status of our educator prep programs. And so if we've wrote something down wrong or we've collected the wrong information, we'd love to get that corrected before we publish it. So we appreciate your feedback on this. Let's start with the summary. For those of you that are keeping track, we have gained like 1 or 2 programs this last year from where we were last year, and some of our programs have grown a little bit. So I believe last year we had 49 Apple programs, and now we have 51. We still have 10 university programs that have been approved, and the Apple programs include 1 program administered by USBE, 50 programs administered by public or private schools or consortiums of public or private schools, and those represent 145 LEAs, 26 private schools for a total of 171 institutions. So that has grown a bit, and we're excited about that. I believe we've got all of our districts covered now that have an Apple program, and a pretty good chunk of our charter schools. So, and I know a lot of our consortiums are covering our charter schools, which has been really helpful for them. And then Apple enrollment last year. For those of you that are remembering, we had just over 2,000 candidates enrolled in Apple last year. Well, when I say last year, I'm going to mean 22, 23. So last year was 23, 24. But this most recent report, we've had an additional 500 candidates that have enrolled in Apple program, and which represents a 21% increase. The percentage increase the year before was about 41%. So it may be leveling off a little bit. The growth has been slowing down possibly, but we'll see what happens next year. And of the 2,575 candidates that have been enrolled, that represents about half of them are secondary candidates, about 27% are elementary, and then we have seen a huge increase in our special ed program. So we've got about almost 20% of our Apple candidates are enrolled in some special ed, either special ed or preschool special ed. We did have about the same number of candidates that are seeking an early childhood or a CTE license area. So they're few, but they're mighty, and we're excited to have them in our programs as well. And then the top 10 programs with the highest enrollment. I think the top 10 list pretty much stayed the same, except now we're welcoming Weber School District to the top 10. They made that just barely as number 10. But for those of you that are remembering, the Utah Association of Public Charter Schools was number 1, and then Apple Special Ed recently overcame them. And then I think Davis remains at number 3. I think SEDC overtook Jordan. So now Jordan is number 5 and SEDC is number 4. So some of these down here have kind of swapped places, but they all made it to the top 10. So I guess congratulations to you. And we're excited to see that our candidates are getting the support that they need. So I think that's great. It's been interesting to watch to see where the need is, I suppose, and how each program is working with their candidates to help them get their licenses. So it's been fun. And then here is Apple enrollment compared to university enrollment. So we combine, this is just teacher preparation. So Apple programs continue, when you combined all of them, they do continue to be the largest preparation program compared to any one university. We're almost to the point where we can combine some of these universities and still be, Apple will still be bigger, but BYU's got about 1,500, Weber State's got about 1,300. And I will say Weber State has had some huge increases in the last year, which has been really interesting. So that's exciting if you live up in the Ogden area. And Utah State's coming in number 4, and then SUU, well, you can see the list there, but we have seen some decreases in enrollment in programs. We haven't quite added on this year's for yet, but there was some decrease in enrollment in schools like Westminster and University of Utah, and we've had some conversations with them about why that is. And I think University of Utah is one of the universities that has decided to adopt the apprenticeship program in the hopes that it might help with some of their enrollment numbers. So that will be to be continued, I think. And then as we talk about completers, we had over 600 individuals who completed an Apple program last school year, which is a 51% increase from the year before, which is huge. I think the year before we had just over 300, so it's been a lot of candidates who have finished. And of those, a few, would say about 50% represent secondary. So we've had a little bit higher, 56% that are completers that are in secondary. And then the elementary, I think percentage is a little bit higher for completers than it is for people enrolled. So they seem to be getting through the program a little bit faster. As we've been going through the data, and this is the part that we haven't quite finished analyzing yet, there seems to be an increase this year in candidates who are getting a second license. That and there seems to be a lot of like elementary moving to secondary or secondary moving to elementary. And so when we finish analyzing that data, we'll share it with you. Traditionally, in the years previously, we've had between 30 and 40% of our candidates that are getting a second license area, which I think is interesting because Apple seems to be the only or the easiest way for candidates to be able to do that. If they switch, um, the population of students that they'd like to work with, and they still need to be qualified. And so Apple seems to be the best way for them to get a second license, whatever that is. And I was curious to know if there's a common switch, like are they all moving from elementary to special ed or vice versa? So far, I haven't seen a pattern, but we'll see when we get it all analyzed. And then we do have a few completers in early childhood, CTE, and preschool special ed. And just as a reminder, the reason why we're collecting all this information is in Board Rule 301. It says that the superintendent shall annually report to the board on licensing, including educator licensing, educator preparation, and equitable distribution of teachers. So the data that we're collecting will be published in a report that we'll share with the board and on our webpage. We've already had requests from legislatures about information on educator prep programs. And so these are like the most requested data points that we get from policymakers and the field, that the universities like to put this information in their accreditation reports. And so we just try and have it available for anybody who wants it and is interested. And it's on our webpage under licensing reports. And then if you'd like to look at what we published last year, if you haven't had a chance, this is the 2023 report. Our 2024 report will be published in the same space once we get it ready. Any questions on the annual reporting process so far? Any anomalies or concerns you guys have seen that we might need to make changes to?
What, Lisa?
Yes.
One interesting thing I wonder if you're tracking is how many people are asking for extensions of that into that fourth year, or if that's not really happening. And also, I would be interested to know. I'd be very interested to know how many are actually individuals who have graduated in elementary ed or in some area of secondary ed, but did not complete the licensing process coming out of their universities, but instead chose to complete the last of their processes out of or through an Apple program. Because I think that would be telling as well to not only us as Apple specialists, but also to the universities about maybe deficits in their program in supporting some of those individuals through those last stages.
I love the way you're thinking. We've actually had some similar thoughts. And so that is something that we are, the university one especially is something that we are working on. We've had some, but I'll just say WGU has been one of the ones that we've noticed the most. So we're going to focus on them first, but there may be other programs out there that have had similar situations where the candidates don't finish with a license for some reason. And so we are going to look at why that is and what we could possibly do to help fix that so that either, we don't know. It's hard to make assumptions when we don't have the data. So we're going to go look at the data and see what's going on, and then I'm sure we'll have a conversation about it. But Malia looks like she's already pulled the AEL extending license data. She said statewide, less than 8% of AEL licenses are extending their license. So that's interesting.
That
And
is, I
then,
mean, it was meant to be an exception, in a hardship case or something. And it sounds like that's exactly what it's being used for. I mean, to make an assumption, but it sounds like the majority of people are able to finish within those 3 years.
yeah. It looks like we've had a slight increase, but compared to the number of AELs we award every year, it's not that significant. So, we'll see. Those numbers tend to be a little bit delayed too, because you got to wait the 3 years before we see somebody that applies for an extension. So,
Well, and I would like to suggest when you're looking at that data, and I'm glad to see that it's kind of just a small group. One of the concerns that I've seen increase just over the course of a little while is just as small as it can be, because 3 years is a fairly generous period of time to get that stuff done. But I feel like that some of the candidates are experiencing financial hardships in trying to finish in 3 years.
yeah, and I know that's been a topic of conversation with some of our like apprenticeship programs and grow your own and things that, we're taking to the legislature on, and what kind of supports can we provide people as they're preparing to become teachers and educators, as their what financial supports are there out there for people like that. I know one of the advantages of APPEL programs is that they do their best to offer these, learning opportunities at the cheapest way possible. And we do appreciate our university partners for doing that, but it still costs something. So if we can get additional support through scholarships or grants or things, that is always helpful.
Just so you know, too, we really appreciated the support that the licensing department gave to teachers with some monies that were available to apply for last December. And they were, I know lots of people applied for them, but every little bit helped. And that really, really helped a lot of the teachers trying to do those pedagogy courses and things like that.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Any other questions on the annual report? Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to, actually, I think I'll do this one. Some of you have received an email about verifying your foundations of reading data, and there's a reason why we're doing that this year, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And so we appreciate those programs that have already verified your rosters. What we're doing is we're trying to be sure that the candidates that we have as being enrolled in your program really are the ones that were enrolled in your program last year. So we want to make sure when we report out your program's passing rates that we have accurate information on that. So thank you for those of you that responded. We do have a few programs who have not responded, and we really need you to respond by we're going to say November 27th by 5 p.m. If we don't hear from you, we're going to go ahead and publish the data that we have, which may or may not be accurate. So we really need you to respond so that we're sharing the correct information. And we'll drop the names of those people who have not verified in the chat, just in case you're not aware of whether it's you or not. So we'll do that in just a minute. And now I will turn that over to Sammy. So this one, oh no, I apologize. Sammy's going to do the systems of support. So I will talk about the foundations of reading results statewide. And these are gradually including APPEL programs. The first couple of years, we had very little to no people that took the foundations of reading tests. So because of that caveat where they have to have their PLP established after September 1st, 2022, that that we're we're slowly getting Apple candidates in with these numbers. I do see a comment in the chat. It says, the passing score is not established until this year, so teachers were taking the test with no expectation of passing score. That should be noted in the data. Yes, we've had some similar feedback from university programs as well. And we've actually looked at compared data from when we announced the cut score to before the cut score, which we believe was in April of this year. And there has been a significant increase in the passing rate from April to September to August, and then before April. I believe it was like a 10% jump, I think it was, of just announcing that the cut score was going to be 240. People did better. So we will probably make a note of that in the report, realizing that these are pilot years and they represent data that was established before the cut score went into effect. Oh, thank you, Malia. She did publish the dates of, is it 10%? It's like 77 to
Yeah,
85.
it was 11.5%.
Yes. 11 and a half. So that is pretty significant and interesting information to have. So statewide, though, we have seen an increase in the passing rate from the 22-23 year to 23-24 year. And that is encouraging. So, and then if we go to compare university programs to Apple programs, universities at about a 68% passing rate, and Apple programs are about 53%. So we've got a little bit of work there. You'll notice that the number of Apple test takers is a lot less than university programs. So, the 204 is a pretty good number as far as sample size, but when you start dividing that up between programs, when you take 204 and divide it up by 50 programs, then it's a little bit difficult. So, in fact, that's part of what we'll share here is that we only had 2 Apple programs that actually had more than 10 test takers. We traditionally do not publish data if there's less than 10 people that are a part of that sample size. And so it's a little bit difficult to share the results of some programs. We have tried to rank them so that you can kind of see where the programs have fallen. But as far as sharing the exact numbers, we can't do that. So, but there have been some programs that have had some really great results. A lot of these programs are really close to having 10. They're like at 8 and 9. So I think this next year we may see a few more. And so we've had some conversations about what does that mean as far as sharing data and analyzing data and that sort of thing. So that's something we'll probably talk more about in the coming months as we start talking about our systems of support. Oh, Joylyn, I feel like I'm being penalized for being big. I know I debated on whether I would share these or not, because whoops, let's go back. It's not fair that just because you have more than 10 that we publish yours, but this probably will not end up in the published report if that's what you mean. I'm trying to create I feel like as safe space for us is that we can talk about data. So if we're not feeling safe, then maybe we'll change that. But any other questions on that?
Lisa, I have a question, and I'm sorry because I'm on a commute. I can't raise my hand in a proper way on the Zoom. I'd be interested to know, just so that I could advise my Apple people, my candidates, if you are able at some point to discern what kinds of preparation prior to that test that the individuals had who are experiencing that higher passing rate. In other words, there was a time when, of course, letters was required for everybody, and it was even paid for. Now this test is required, but how you get to your preparation for it can be, a little bit different for different paths for different people. And we have some who have come through the university programs who have not finished their license, but they have received their degree and then they're an APPEL. And so they've done quite a bit of coursework related to this. I'd be interested to know if the letters is having the best results, if coursework is having the best results. I mean, not having taken this test, I'm a secondary teacher in my experience. I don't know personally what helps somebody prepare for this. So if the data tells you, I'd be interested in knowing that.
I love that suggestion, and that's part of why I was trying to share data to see where the bright spots are. Programs that are having success, that possibly more than some other programs, and we could talk to them and see what it is that they're doing. I know that's also part of what we've got Sammy here for, is that I know they've got some ideas of what has helped candidates in the past be successful in demonstrating those competencies. And so I think that's a good segue into turning the time over to her and talk about that systems of support. So Sammy.
Hi, thank you for having me. To those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm Sammy. I don't know if you already introduced me, Lisa. I was late to the game.
Oh, I did not. I apologize. Do you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. My name is Sammy Willie, and I just started here about a month ago at USBE, and will be working with educator prep programs, and specifically in the Euphoria world. So I'm excited to be here. I'm still learning all the ins and outs, so I am happy to be of help however I can. I can't promise to know the answer to everything, but I will figure it out. So, jumping into systems of support, this is the Utah code surrounding the systems of support. So it states that the state board shall monitor programs regarding the science of reading preparation, as well as develop strategies to provide support for the programs with low passing rates on the Euphoria. And then lastly, provide increasing levels of support to preparation programs with low passing rates for 2 consecutive years. Awesome. Okay, so in this slide, there is, it looks like Lisa was clicking that. There is the menu of the system of support that we have created at USBE. So starting in 2024 and 2025 this year, so any EPPs with less than 75% of their teacher candidates passing Euphoria with a 240 or higher will qualify for this system of support. So this won't go into effect until the end of this testing year. So here at USBE, we will review the data from the testing window, which is September 1st through August 31st. And then we will notify education dean, SOAR faculty, if there is any associate dean, APPEL director, that a program has fallen below that threshold and qualifies by December 1st. Lisa dropped the link to that document in the chat as well if you want to look over that. I'm going to kind of briefly touch on it, but I know you all can read through that as well. So this is just a high level overview of that system of support and what it looks like. So year 1 will be an internal action. The program will be identified as low performing and will be required to collaborate in at least one program improvement strategy as outlined. And again, if you look at the document, you can read a little bit more in depth about that. Years 2 and 3 will be a coordinated action. So again, the identified program will be required to collaborate in continued and increasing levels of support as outlined. Again, that document will go into further detail. And then year 4 will be probationary status. So this is when the identified program's cumulative results of low performance with recommendations for improvement will be shared with the board. and program approval may be revoked if the results at the end of year 4 are still below that 75% threshold. All right, I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions regarding this system of support? Thank you, Lisa.
Hey, Sammy, I have a question.
Yeah.
If a program has a candidate, let's say doesn't, takes the foundations of reading, doesn't pass, if they wanted to require the candidate to take it again,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say the candidate did take it again and they passed the second time or got worse, either one, which scores count from that? Like, does the candidate have two scores? You know what I mean? Or if they,
So if they
improve the score,
pass,
then
yeah, if they are, and we're going to go into what if you don't pass. There's a few different options for students who do not pass. I believe that if you do pass, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong here, that's the score, right? That's all that matters. Um, and then I would assume if they take it and they don't pass again, we would look at the higher of the two scores, because the different options there is a flex option depending on how close you were. Lisa, does that sound correct?
Yes, sorry, I was muted.
You're okay.
Because we do it by the reporting year. So if they take the test and then didn't pass and then take the test again within the same reporting year, then we will replace their first score with their new score within that same year. But if they take the test and don't pass and then take the test again in another reporting year, they will essentially be reported on twice, but one in one year and one on the other year. So that we unfortunately don't go back to the previous year and change their score, but they would be reported as passing the next year. So that could show up as an increase in the institution's passing rates the next year.
and if someone does the flex, that score does not show up as passing in terms of pulling the data of like who passed the foundations of
Um,
with the 240, correct?
yes, it would. So if they don't pass and they're within that threshold of being able to take the flex and they take the flex and pass, then that would be considered a passing score.
Gotcha.
So we would mark them as having passed.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you. There are a couple of questions in the chat as well. Where did we come up with the passing rate of 75%? Was that created by the board?
That was determined by board leadership, our teaching and learning leadership, where we were looking at passing rates from the last 3 years and determining what would be a reasonable expectation for programs. At least half of our programs have passing rates above 75, so we thought that might be a good threshold to come up with. So we may reevaluate that once we see data from this year, but for now, that's just where we've established it.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question from Joylyn. Oh, looks like Andrew already answered that for me. Thank you, Andrew. Um,
He only answered part, so he says that the flex would give him a passing, but would it then be more beneficial to our programs to not offer the micro-credential option when they don't pass? Because if they do micro-credentials, that would then negatively impact the program.
It won't impact the program because if they do the micro-credentials and pass the micro-credentials, that is also considered a passing score. So it would, same with the flex option, is that if they don't pass the foundations of reading on their first attempt and then they decide to do the micro-credentials, then essentially they would be listed as past the foundations of reading.
So they just have to do that in the same year that they take the foundations of reading.
Yeah, same with the micro-credentials. If they take the foundations of reading in 1 year, don't pass, and then finish the micro-credentials the following year, they will be listed as passing the next year, but as failed the year before. So they will be counted once in each year.
okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Mhm. And then I
Any
did,
other questions? Oh, sorry, cut you off, Lisa.
oh, it's fine. We talked about the activities that are available during that first year with internal action. They just need to pick one. But I think some of these are interesting, like where they, up to 3 data meetings conducted. They attend USB letters, trainings, evaluate systems for communicating. So that some of these I know were presented as ways that research has shown to help improve candidates' knowledge and skills. So, and that there may be other ones that we have as Sammy's come and helped us through this process that we could add some additional things on here. And then year 2 is where they're required to do one, and then they have the other optional strategies. So it could be helpful to look at those and to see what, if you want to be proactive and say, what can we do, like Cynthia was asking, to help improve our candidates' performances, is adopt some of these strategies ahead of time and see if it works for you.
Oh, that's a great suggestion for sure. Thank you, Lisa. All right. Um, we head back to the slideshow.
Oh, yes, sorry.
You're fine. Okay. In terms of the Apple candidates, so Apple candidates whose PLP was established after August 31st, 2022 will be required to pass the Foundations of Reading test. Again, that passing score of 240 went into effect this year on September 1st. And they will need to pass with a score of 240 or higher to receive their license. So this linked document here is the options that come along if you do not pass. So option number 1 is to retake the Euphoria, so to take it again. I will note the voucher that we offer from USBE will be good one time. After that, the candidate will have to pay own if they decide to retake the Euphoria. The next option is the flex option. So if the individual scores between 231 and 239, they are eligible to take the flex option. I believe this one costs $60 if my memory is correct. I believe
69. Yeah.
69. Okay, I was close. So that's the flex option here. And then the last option is to complete those micro-credentials that we were just talking about. They will need to complete all 3 to be considered passing that Euphoria assessment. Any questions on that?
Did you put that in the chat, that document?
Yes. We do have some common, frequently asked questions. One thing that I need to add to that is we get the questions of, well, if they already have an elementary license and now they're seeking a special ed license, do they still have to take the Foundations of Reading? Yes. Unfortunately, there's no grandfather clause about if they already have a license, professional license area, that they don't have to do it. So if they're earning a new license in either elementary, early childhood, or special ed, they will need to do the Foundations of Reading. Unless they've already taken it and passed it, then they've met that requirement.
Okay, Jane asked, which entity is the U4 reported with if they take it through a university program, but then are hired with an LEA through an APPEL program?
That's interesting. Usually, probably the university, unless for some reason, because I'm assuming the university is the one that requested their voucher and they were enrolled with first, and they probably were enrolled when they took the test, unless for some reason the candidate dropped out of that program before they took the test, and then it would be the APPEL program. So it's possible that a person, especially if they were enrolled in the university and then didn't pass and then dropped out and then enrolled in APPEL and then took the test again, they could be reported twice. So that's a possibility. That's kind of why we may have had some part of that verification process is, who's going to claim that person. And but usually we tend to side on whichever program requests their voucher for them. So if for their second and third attempts, though, that might get a little bit dicey. So we'll have to work through those individually, I think.
Great. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for me? All right. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Okay, maybe we are going to finish a little bit early. So I think that was the last section. We'll stay on for a few minutes to answer some additional questions. I'm going to check the chat, see if we missed anything. Oh, so we did have a question of, do the systems of support go into effect with last year's scores? The answer would be no. So the scores that we're reporting right now are kind of a pilot, just to see where you're at. The scores that will really count are the ones that happened this year. And so hopefully everybody does well this year. Okay.
Quick question, or maybe
Yes.
not a quick question. I'm wondering if my intention has been to wait until the January template that the USB will be providing for Apple specialists and programs as a kind of a guideline of opportunities and things that will be allowed to count for various demonstrations of required pedagogy skills and so on.
Mhm.
When we report to this group what we've adopted, I'm assuming that it can be that full template or a modification of that template rather than something we create out of whole cloth.
Yes, you can modify the template if it works best for you.
But we
And
don't have to. I know that there are some who are creating their own and getting it approved through your group, but for those of us who either don't have the numbers or the staff within our Apple special or our Apple programs, and who intend to adopt yours, will there be a way for us to just submit that or explain and give you an assurance that we're following this particular template, or how will that work? Because I know that there's been some, not having seen it, there's been some uncertainty there that we're just hoping that the process will be rather simple.
yes. So our intent by January is to have a list of higher ed courses that they're going to be offered that align to the new competencies, which will usually cover the content, the basic knowledge, and the application competencies. And then we'll also have an evaluation, because most of the demonstration competencies that have to be done in a classroom with students will be demonstrated through evaluation, observation type stuff. So we'll probably have an evaluation rubric or an instrument that you could also adopt there that aligns to those competencies. So by January, you should just be able to say, we're going to use Snow's classes, Slick's classes in these competencies, and then we're going to adopt the USBE's template for evaluation on the demonstration competencies and be done. Or you could put in the micro-credentials. We also have micro-credentials that were going to be available by January, and say they could also do the micro-credentials to demonstrate. And then that would be probably the easiest and quickest way to do that. If you are wanting to change any of that, like you want to use your own observation rubric or evaluation rubric, or you want to have your own courses, then those would either you can submit them ahead of time to us to review, or the information on those would need to be included in your template so that we can review that in addition to the template.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Lisa, can I add one other thing to that?
Sure.
So Julie Lundell, I'm not sure what Julie's title is. But she works in teaching and learning, and she is creating a few documents. So any school district, and a charter could use it as well, but any school district that's required to evaluate teachers in alignment with the Utah Effective Teaching Standards. She's creating an observation tool for all the application and demonstration general teacher competencies, that would also be in compliance with the state requirement for the districts for the UITs evaluations. So in theory, you could use this evaluation that she's creating and observe the competencies and be in compliance with the Utah Effective Teaching Standard District evaluation requirement. And she's also created, so the ones that teachers do, like the self-evaluation, she's already created that one. So obviously anyone can use that. You could take that and add to it. If you're like, our district would like to utilize that, for the APPEL teachers and add to it, some other things that we'd like to observe, like, anyway. So just so you know, that's something that should also be coming down the pipeline, hopefully not too long.
Yes, and when we do have that, we'll put it in the drive for everyone to use. And then Joe had a good question. He was asking about the funding for the vouchers, and that grant program is set to expire the end of or June 2025. The board has requested the legislature extend that program, and we're hopeful that they will grant that request, but there is a possibility that the funding for the vouchers will run out at the end of this year. We're hoping that's not the case, but if it does happen, candidates are still required to take the foundations of reading, but they won't get a voucher for it anymore. So we're really hoping that they'll extend that so that they don't have to pay for the test themselves. And we should know by the end of the legislative session, which is early March, whether we got that funding or not.
Lisa,
Yes.
doesn't board rule say something or statute say something about providing funding?
Yeah, it does, but that program, it's a grant program, is set to expire June 30th, 2025. And it's kind of a standard practice that they just sunset programs every 5 years, so it gives them a chance to evaluate, whether they're going to continue the program or not. So we have requested that we continue the program and that they provide additional funding. So we're hopeful that it will be extended, but we won't know for sure.
If it's in statute or rule and the funding expires, it's kind of like two different pieces of the same issue of the same program. How does that work? Because if it's still in statute or rule, isn't there an obligation to meet that regardless of a grant expiring?
In the rule, when they mention the grant program, it says that the program is set to expire in 5 years, and it started in 2020. So the sunset date is June 30th, 2025.
So it's all part of the same. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm going to pause the recording.
Lisa, I have a couple praxis score questions for you when everybody else is done.
Sure. Okay, well, we'll call the meeting adjourned, but we'll stick around to answer a few questions. And we really appreciate you guys coming, and we hope that you guys have a great holiday season. Because we will not see you again until January. So our next meeting will be January 23rd. And so you guys have a great holiday season, and we'll see you in January.